Is there a serial killer in Texas? Introduction: The Water's Edge. The pre-dawn calm of Austin, Texas, is a fragile thing. Before the city fully wakes, a stillness settles over the dark surface of Lady Bird Lake, a reservoir that snakes through the heart of the metropolis like a dormant artery. On a morning like so many others, a lone paddleboarder glides across the water, the only sound the gentle dip of their oar. Then, a shape breaks the placid surface near the Butler Hike and Bike Trail. At first, it is an object of confusion, something out of place. But as the board drifts closer, confusion curdles into horror. It is a body, bobbing gently in the water. A trembling voice on a 911 call shatters the morning quiet. Soon, the flashing lights of Austin Police Department and EMS vehicles paint the shoreline in strobing reds and blues. The recovery is quiet, methodical, a grim ritual that has become hauntingly familiar. The official report, when it comes, will likely contain a phrase that has become a mantra of both reassurance and suspicion in this city: no signs of foul play. This recovery, however, is not an isolated tragedy. It is the latest in a chilling sequence that has gripped Austin in a vice of fear and speculation. Depending on who is counting, this is one of at least 19 bodies recovered from the lake since 2022, or one of 38 found in and around it during the same period. This statistical discrepancy is the first clue that two starkly different stories are being told about the deaths at Lady Bird Lake. One is a story of tragic accidents, a confluence of nightlife and natural hazards. The other is a story of a predator. This book investigates the central question that haunts the city. In a community shadowed by whispers of a modern-day Ripper, are the bodies pulled from Lady Bird Lake the victims of a calculating serial killer? Or is the truth a more complex, and perhaps more unsettling story of coincidence, systemic failure, and a city haunted by a ghost of its own making? For the families of the dead, for the tens of thousands in online forums, and for a handful of investigators speaking off the record, accident is not an answer. It's an evasion. They believe the truth is still out there, hiding in the dark, near the water's edge. And they believe the pattern is too clear to be ignored. Chapter 1. The Pattern in the Numbers. How a Ghost is Born. A ghost story begins not with a specter, but with a pattern. It starts with numbers that refuse to align with the laws of chance. In Austin, the pattern emerged from the cold, murky waters of Lady Bird Lake, and it was written in the language of statistics. Since 2022, of the 38 bodies discovered in or near the lake, 30 have been male. Of those men, more than 60% were between the ages of 30 and 49. This is not a random distribution. This is a profile, and this is how a ghost gets its shape. The victimology. The numbers tell a story of a specific type of victim. These are not just unfortunate souls who met with accidents. They are men who, in their final hours, shared disturbing similarities. A significant number were last seen alive in or near the Rainey Street Historic District, a unique and bustling entertainment hub where historic 1920s bungalows have been converted into trendy bars and restaurants. They vanish late at night, often after becoming separated from friends. Days later, they are found in the lake, almost always fully clothed, with their wallets and cell phones still in their pockets, a detail that seems to rule out simple robbery as a motive. This confluence of factors, the specific demographic, the geographic nexus of Rainey Street, the time of disappearance, and the condition of the bodies, gave birth to a modern boogeyman, the Rainey Street Ripper. The name, whispered first in local online forums, spread like wildfire across social media, weaving disparate tragedies into a singular, terrifying narrative. Each new discovery, each grieving family, added another thread to the legend. The numbers game. At the heart of the mystery lies a fundamental conflict over the data itself, a statistical battleground where the official narrative and public fear collide. The Austin Police Department has been precise and consistent in its public statements. According to the APD, between 2022 and June 2025, a total of 19 bodies were recovered directly from Lady Bird Lake. This number is presented as the factual, verifiable scope of the problem. Yet, media outlets and the public cling to a much higher figure. Citing data obtained through their own channels, local news like Fox 7 Austin consistently reports, at least 38 bodies have been found in or around Lady Bird Lake since 2022. This larger number includes not only those pulled from the water but also those discovered on the surrounding trails and parkland. This is not a simple miscalculation, it is a strategic schism. The APD's focus on the lower number is an attempt to define and contain the boundaries of the phenomenon, to argue that the pattern is less pronounced than the public believes. By narrowing the geographic criteria to only bodies in the water, they can more easily attribute the deaths to individual accidents. However, the public's insistence on the higher number reflects a more holistic and deeply felt reality. For the community, a body found on the trail is part of the same geography of fear as one found in the lake. The entire area has become a place of perceived danger. The discrepancy itself has become a source of suspicion, fueling the belief that authorities are minimizing the crisis or, worse, hiding something. This conflict over the true count represents the fundamental disconnect between the official story and the public's lived experience of fear. The following table documents the men whose deaths have become central to this mystery, a timeline of loss that reveals the chilling frequency and the often unsettling official conclusions. Victim name, age, date found, location found, last seen, if known. Official cause, manner of death. Ricky Parks, N.A., July 14, 2022. Near 9 East Avenue. N.A., no foul play, APD closed. Amos Olateo, 30, September 2022. N.A., N.A., tragic accident. Christopher Gutierrez, N.A., December 10, 2022. Near S. Pleasant Valley Road and S. Lakeshore Boulevard. N.A., no foul play, APD closed. Josue Moreno, 45, December 19, 2022. Near Pedestrian Bridge, S. Lamar Boulevard. N.A., homicide, shooting, crash. Kyle Thornton, N.A., December 28, 2022. Near Congress Avenue Bridge. N.A., no foul play, APD closed. Jason John, 30, February 13, 2023. Near 30 East Avenue, Rainey Street, accidental drowning, M.E. Clifton Axtell, 40, March 5, 2023. Near 1100 W Riverside Drive. N.A., undetermined, M.E. Jonathan Honey, 33, April 1, 2023. Near 10 Rainey Street, accidental drowning, M.E. John Christopher Hayes Clark, 30, April 15, 2023. Near 2700 block of Canterbury Street. N.A., no foul play, APD. Moga Dogale, 23, June 27, 2023. Near 1000 block of W. Cesar Chavez Street. N.A., not investigated as homicide, APD. Irwamiri Shote, 17, June 3, 2025. Near Riverside Drive and S. Lamar Boulevard. Lady Bird Lake, tragic accident, APD. The patterns were undeniable, the numbers alarming. But patterns can deceive. To understand what was truly happening, one had to look beyond the data and into the lives of the men who vanished. What their families found, and what the police refused to see, would turn a ghost story into a potential conspiracy. Chapter 2. The Official Story, Why the Police Say You're Safe. In the face of rising public fear and rampant online speculation, the Austin Police Department erected a wall of official denial. Their message, delivered repeatedly through press releases and televised briefings, was unequivocal. The Austin Police Department is aware of speculations regarding the recent drownings in Lady Bird Lake. Although these cases are still under investigation and evidence is being analyzed, at this time, there is no evidence in any of these cases to support allegations of foul play. The tragic accident theory. The police narrative is not a simple dismissal. It is a cohesive, multifaceted explanation for the string of deaths. It paints a picture of a perfect storm of environmental hazards and human behavior. At the center is the vibrant nightlife of Rainey Street, a district that encourages heavy alcohol consumption. From there, it is a short, dark walk to the shores of Lady Bird Lake. The APD argues that this proximity provides easy access for intoxicated individuals to stumble toward the water. The lake itself is presented as a treacherous environment, especially at night. Swimming has been illegal there since two sisters drowned in 1964, not just because of currents, but because of what lies beneath the surface, a junkyard of old construction debris, concrete, rebar, and even discarded shopping carts and needles. Compounding the danger are natural hazards like underwater shelves, sudden, invisible drop-offs where the lakebed plummets. Investigators believe these shelves were a factor in several deaths, including that of 17-year-old Irwamiri Shote, who was paddleboarding with his family when he stepped off his board into what he thought was shallow water, only to disappear. The official story is a tapestry woven from these threads, a combination of alcohol, a poorly lit and hazardous lakefront, and other human tragedies like suicide, drug overdoses, and mental health crises. The homicide exception and the city's response. To bolster their argument, the APD frequently points to the one case they have ruled a homicide, the death of Josue Moreno in December 2022. Moreno was not a victim of a mysterious drowning. He was shot during a violent conflict between two groups before his truck crashed into the lake. An arrest was made and a suspect, Joel Santiago Gonzalez Pavone, was charged with murder. The APD uses this case as a benchmark. It serves as their proof that when evidence of foul play exists, they are capable of identifying it and bringing a suspect to justice. The unspoken implication is that the other cases simply lack such evidence. In response to public pressure, the city has also taken visible steps to address safety concerns. With an investment of nearly $1 million, they have installed better lighting, new fencing, and more prominent warning signs along the trail, particularly near the nightlife zones. While these measures are practical safety improvements, they also serve a narrative purpose. By focusing on enhancing environmental safety, the city subtly reinforces the accidental death theory, framing the problem as one of infrastructure, not a human predator. The APD's communication strategy is one of reassurance through dismissal. After each body is found, they issue nearly identical statements emphasizing the lack of foul play. The goal is to project calm and prevent panic. However, this strategy has backfired. By consistently refusing to release detailed information, such as full autopsy reports or toxicology panels, their reassurances are widely perceived as dismissals of legitimate public concern. This has created a dangerous information vacuum, a void that has been filled with suspicion, rumor, and a deep-seated distrust of the official narrative. The department's statement that the circumstances, exact locations, and demographics surrounding these cases vary is a direct attempt to dismantle the pattern narrative, but to a worried public, it sounds like they aren't even looking for connections. Pause and consider. You are the police chief. You have no definitive evidence of a serial killer. Releasing speculation could cause mass panic and harm tourism. Do you stick to the facts you have, even if the public doesn't believe you? What would you have done? The official story was neat, logical, and designed to calm a nervous city. But for the families who had seen their loved ones' last moments, who had received the late-night calls, it was a fiction. A dangerous fiction, and they were about to fight back. Chapter 3. The Counter-Narrative. What the families know. I'm trying to move on from it, and you hear that more bodies are found. It is never going to stop. The police are not doing anything about it. These are the raw, frustrated words of Regan Aparicio, the mother of 30-year-old Christopher Hayes Clark's son. Her voice is one of many in a chorus of grief and anger that forms the powerful counter-narrative to the city's official story. While the police see case files to be closed, the families see sons, brothers, and fathers whose deaths defy simple explanation. They have become the de facto opposition investigators, armed with personal knowledge, intuition, and a refusal to accept accident as the final word. The voices of the grieving. This chapter is built around the specific, troubling details that families have brought forward. Details they believe the police have ignored or dismissed. Case file. Jason John, 30, found February 13, 2023. Jason's mother, Elsie, vehemently rejects the official ruling of accidental drowning. She argues that her son, an avid hiker who lived nearby, knew the trail like the back of his hand, and would not have simply fallen in. Her most compelling piece of evidence comes from his smartwatch data. She claims that on the night he disappeared, his heart rate, which had been steady, suddenly dropped significantly, a detail she believes points to him being targeted or incapacitated before he entered the water. "You don't need to be in FBI to figure this out," she stated in an interview. "Based on all these criterias, it's just common sense." Case file. Christopher Hayes Clark, 30, found April 15, 2023. Regan Aparicio describes a wall of silence from investigators. "They won't give us any answers. Everything literally has been pending is what we're being told," she said, adding that she does not believe his death was an accident. She has publicly implored the APD to reopen the cases of all the victims, calling the department's handling of the situation a slap in the face and a source of unending pain for her son, who has no accurate answer about what happened to his father. Case file. Martin Gutierrez, 25, found in 2018. The Gutierrez family's suspicions predate the Rainey Street Ripper frenzy. They have long maintained that Martin was drugged during a night out on Rainey Street. His brother, Mitchell, who works in the medical field, points to surveillance footage of Martin acting strangely just before he vanished. He also revealed a critical conversation with the medical examiner's office, where he was told that due to the length of time Martin's body was decomposing in the water, it was possible some of the substances may have leaked out. This admission from an official source gives weight to the theory that the absence of drugs in toxicology reports is not conclusive proof of their absence at the time of death. The survivors' stories, a chilling glimpse. The family's suspicions are powerfully reinforced by the terrifying accounts of men who believe they narrowly escaped the same fate. Jeff Jones, a 38-year-old from Boston, was visiting for a bachelor party in June 2023. After a night out, he went missing, only to be found under a bridge with catastrophic injuries. He woke up in the hospital a week later from a medically induced coma, with metal rods in his back and his spleen removed. Medical tests found benzodiazepines, a class of drugs associated with date-rape substances like Rohypnol and GHB, in his system, which he vehemently denies taking. He believes he was drugged and pushed. Connor Deserly, 23, tells a similar story. After 1 or 2 drinks on 6th Street, he felt crazy, like F up. His next memory is waking up in a hospital days later, having been on life support. His toxicology report revealed a cocktail of fentanyl, ketamine, and methamphetamines, drugs he insists he never knowingly ingested. These survivor stories provide a chilling, what-if scenario. They offer a tangible mechanism, drugging, that could explain how strong, healthy men could become so disoriented that they would end up in the lake without a struggle. Their accounts validate the deepest fears of the victims' families and directly challenge the APD's narrative. The digital precinct. When official channels proved unsatisfying, the public created its own. The Lady Bird Lake Serial Killer Facebook group swelled to over 92,000 members, becoming a digital hub for sharing information, dissecting news reports, and providing mutual support. A link to change.org petition demanding police reopen the cases and install better safety measures garnered over 6,000 signatures. These platforms are more than just rumor mills. They are the headquarters of a grassroots investigation, a public inquest born from a collective sense of being ignored. They represent a fundamental shift in how communities engage with crime in the digital age, refusing to be passive recipients of an official narrative they do not trust. The family's search is driven by love, intuition, and intimate knowledge of the victims. The police investigation is driven by protocol and a high standard of evidence. In the gap between the emotional and the bureaucratic, the counter-narrative has taken root and grown into a formidable challenge to the official version of events. The families and survivors all pointed to one thing: a chemical ghost in the system. A weapon that could make a man walk to his own death, a weapon that science itself struggles to find. Was this the key? Chapter 4. The Forensic Black Hole. How to Get Away with Murder. Imagine a poison that vanishes. A weapon that leaves no wound and erases the victim's memory of the crime. For a killer, it's the perfect tool. For an investigator, it's a forensic black hole. This is the central scientific problem haunting the Lady Bird Lake deaths. The theory of a predator using date-rape drugs hinges on substances that are notoriously difficult to detect, creating an ambiguity that both fuels speculation and protects the official narrative. A primer on chemical ghosts. The drugs most commonly cited in the Rainey Street Ripper theory are gamma-hydroxybutyrate, GHB, flunitrazepam, Rohypnol, and ketamine. These substances, often called club drugs, share a sinister set of effects. They are potent sedatives that can induce confusion, disorientation, loss of motor control, and, most critically, anterograde amnesia, the inability to form new memories. They can be administered in liquid or powder form and are often colorless, odorless, and tasteless, making them easy to slip into a drink unnoticed. Their danger is amplified exponentially when mixed with alcohol, the one substance confirmed to be present in many of the victims. Alcohol potentiates the sedative effects of these drugs, creating a synergistic combination that can lead to profound incapacitation, respiratory depression, and even death. A person who has had only a couple of drinks could appear severely intoxicated, stumble, and lose consciousness if they have been drugged. The detection gap. The primary challenge for investigators is the fleeting nature of this evidence. These drugs are metabolized and eliminated from the body with terrifying speed. The vanishing window, GHB, a substance that occurs naturally in the body in small amounts, can become undetectable in a urine sample in as few as 12 hours. Rohypnol is typically undetectable after 72 hours. The reporting delay. Victims of drug-facilitated sexual assault, DFSA, often do not report the crime immediately, precisely because of the amnesia and confusion caused by the drugs. In the case of the Lady Bird Lake deaths, the timeline is even more protracted. A victim is first reported missing, a search is conducted, and by the time their body is recovered from the water, often days or even a week later, the chemical window for detecting the initial drugging agent has slammed shut. The water problem. The process of decomposition in water further complicates toxicology. As Mitchell Gutierrez was told by the medical examiner's office, it is possible for substances to degrade or leak out of a body that has been submerged for an extended period, making a negative toxicology report inconclusive. This forensic challenge is so significant that the absence of drugs in a final autopsy report cannot be taken as definitive proof that they were never present. Diagram: the vanishing evidence. To visualize this forensic dilemma, imagine a timeline. At hour 0, a victim is drugged. The detection window for a substance like GHB begins to shrink almost immediately. By hour 12, it may be gone. However, the investigative timeline often doesn't even begin until hour 24, when the victim is reported missing. The search may take another 24 to 48 hours or more. By the time the body is recovered at hour 72 or later, standard toxicology screens are searching for a ghost. The investigation starts long after the most critical evidence has vanished. The ambiguity of drowning. Even the evidence the police do have, the bodies themselves, is subject to interpretation. Retired NYPD homicide detective Kevin Gannon, who has taken an active interest in these cases, offers a sharp critique of the official findings. He argues that drowning is often a diagnosis of exclusion, meaning it's the cause of death assigned when no other obvious cause is found. He contends that many police and medical examiners lack specialized knowledge in drowning forensics and can easily miss subtle signs of foul play. Gannon points to specific inconsistencies in similar cases he has studied. He claims that the victim's lung weights are sometimes below what is expected in a typical drowning and that the condition of the skin, a lack of skin slippage, can be inconsistent with the amount of time the body was supposedly in the water. He suggests these anomalies could indicate the victim was dead before entering the lake. This expert critique directly challenges the APD's repeated "no signs of trauma" statements by suggesting that the real evidence of a crime is being misinterpreted or overlooked. If the evidence is scientifically difficult, if not impossible, to find, does that mean a crime never happened? Or does it mean the perpetrator has found a method that is smarter than the science meant to detect it? This exact question, this same pattern of doubt, official denial, and forensic ambiguity, has surfaced before, in other cities, by other dark waters. Chapter 5. Echoes in the Water, The Smiley Face Killers and the Manchester Pusher. Austin, 2024. Manchester, 2016. The American Midwest, 1997. Different places, different decades, same terrifying story. Young men, last seen at bars, found dead in the water. The fear haunting Austin is not new. It is an echo of a narrative that has emerged and re-emerged in communities across the Western world for decades. These parallel cases reveal a powerful pattern, not necessarily of a single killer, but of a recurring urban legend that takes root in the fertile ground of unexplained death and public distrust. Are these isolated tragedies? Or are they chapters in a much larger, darker book? Deep Dive: The Smiley Face Killer Theory. The most famous precursor to the Rainey Street Ripper is the Smiley Face Killer theory. Advanced in the mid-2000s by retired NYPD detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, the theory posits a connection between the deaths of at least 45 young men across 11 states, primarily in the Midwest, dating back to the late 1990s. The pattern: the victims fit a specific profile. They were popular, athletic, successful white college students who disappeared after a night of drinking and were later found drowned. The signature: the theory gets its name from the discovery of smiley face graffiti found near at least a dozen of the locations where the bodies were believed to have been dumped. The detectives interpreted this as a taunting signature left by a sophisticated, organized group of killers. The official rebuttal: the theory has been widely and consistently debunked by law enforcement. In a 2008 statement, the FBI announced that after a review, it had not developed any evidence to support links between these tragic deaths, and concluded that the vast majority of these instances appear to be alcohol-related drownings. Critics, including criminal profiler Pat Brown, called the theory ludicrous, arguing that smiley face graffiti is common and its presence is likely coincidental. The Center for Homicide Research published a detailed paper refuting the theory, pointing out that the smiley faces lacked a consistent signature and that homicidal drowning is an extremely rare form of murder, typically involving parents and children. Across the pond, the Manchester Pusher. A similar narrative took hold in the United Kingdom, centered on the canal network of Greater Manchester. Between 2008 and 2016, 85 bodies were recovered from the city's waterways, sparking rumors of a shadowy figure dubbed the Manchester Pusher. The public narrative, fueled by a 2016 Channel 4 documentary, suggested a serial killer was preying on people near the canals. Once again, the official response was a firm denial. Greater Manchester Police issued a formal statement and video explaining that there was no evidence to support the opinion that these deaths occurred as a result of a serial killer. They attributed the deaths to the dangerous combination of alcohol consumption in waterside bars and a lack of safety barriers along the dark canal towpaths. The birth of a folk devil. Analyzing these cases together reveals a powerful cultural phenomenon. In each instance, the Midwest, Manchester, and now Austin, a folk devil is born. This term describes a figure or group that comes to personify a community's anxieties. The serial killer theory, whether it's the Smiley Face Gang or the Rainey Street Ripper, provides a simple, compelling narrative, an evil monster, for a complex and messy reality: the dangers of excessive drinking, inadequate urban infrastructure, mental health crises, and the random cruelty of accidental death. These theories persist despite official denials for several reasons. First, they offer a more emotionally satisfying explanation than chaos. A killer can be caught and brought to justice. A flawed society is much harder to fix. Second, the involvement of retired law enforcement figures like Gannon and Duarte lends an air of insider credibility, suggesting they see truths that the official bureaucracy is unwilling to acknowledge. Finally, modern social media acts as a powerful accelerant, spreading the narrative far beyond the reach of official press releases and allowing it to evolve and absorb new cases, like those in Austin, into its pre-existing mythological framework. Comparing the cases. While the narratives are similar, there are key distinctions to be made. Common DNA. Young male victims. Context of nightlife and alcohol consumption. Recovery of bodies from water. Official rulings of accident or undetermined cause. A strong public counter-narrative fueled by speculation. The involvement of retired or independent investigators challenging the official line. Key differences. The smiley face signature, the central piece of evidence in the SFK theory, is largely absent in Austin. The Austin cases are far more geographically concentrated in one specific area, Lady Bird Lake and Rainey Street, compared to the sprawling, multi-state nature of the SFK theory. The role of social media is vastly more central and powerful in the Austin case, shaping the narrative in real time in a way that was not possible during the early years of the SFK investigations. Whether a global conspiracy or a recurring urban legend, the question inevitably returns to Texas. Why Austin? Why now? The answer may lie not just in the water, but in the unique pressures on the city itself and the police force sworn to protect it. Conclusion: the devil you know. So, is there a serial killer in Texas? After examining the evidence, the official statements, the family testimonies, and the historical precedents, the answer is profoundly unsatisfying. There is no definitive proof, no DNA, no confession, no weapon, no witness, of a singular, Rainey Street Ripper, stalking the streets of Austin. To claim otherwise would be to trade one form of speculation for another. However, the official narrative of simple, unrelated accidents is equally insufficient. It crumbles under the weight of its own contradictions. It fails to adequately explain the clear statistical patterns in the victimology. It dismisses the credible, harrowing testimonies of survivors who woke up in hospitals with drugs in their systems and no memory of an attack. It sidesteps the legitimate forensic questions raised by experts about the ambiguity of drowning evidence and the limitations of toxicology. And most importantly, it ignores the profound, unified, and consistent distrust from the families of the men who have died. The truth of what is happening in Austin appears to be more complex and, in some ways, more disturbing than the specter of a lone predator. The killer in this story may not be a single person, but a perfect storm of systemic failures, a monster with many faces. First, a dangerous environment. Austin has cultivated a world-famous entertainment district on Rainey Street, a place that thrives on a culture of heavy alcohol consumption. This district is located precariously close to a large, dark, and hazardous body of water with poor lighting and limited safety barriers. This combination creates a permanent, predictable risk. Second, a culture of vulnerability. Within this environment, a separate but related threat exists, the documented phenomenon of drink spiking in Austin's bars. The motive may not always be serial murder. It could be robbery or sexual assault. In this context, an incapacitated victim stumbling away from a bar and falling into the nearby lake is not an unforeseeable outcome. The death becomes a tragic, but predictable, consequence of a different crime. The accounts from survivors like Jeff Jones and Connor Deserly strongly suggest this type of opportunistic violence is occurring. And third, a weakened shield. The Austin Police Department is facing a severe and publicly documented crisis. As of early 2025, the department had over 330 sworn officer vacancies, an 18% vacancy rate that has more than doubled since 2020. This staffing shortage, exacerbated by past budget cuts and difficulties in recruiting, has forced the department to pay nearly $50 million in overtime to fill gaps. An understaffed and overstretched police force, regardless of its intentions, may lack the resources and bandwidth to conduct the kind of deep, proactive, and time-consuming investigations that these complex, ambiguous cases demand. This institutional strain, combined with a severe erosion of public trust, creates a scenario where the police are unable to effectively investigate or reassure the community they serve. The deaths are so hard to solve because the evidence is inherently ambiguous and vanishes quickly. A potential killer could be hiding in plain sight because they may not even be a killer in the traditional sense, but a collection of opportunistic criminals whose actions have fatal, but perhaps unintended, consequences. The public is in danger, not necessarily from a calculating murderer, but from the constant, unresolved threat posed by this confluence of dangerous factors. To stop the deaths at Lady Bird Lake would require more than catching one person. It would require a fundamental re-evaluation of the relationship between the city's nightlife, public safety, and the police force's ability to protect its citizens. The book closes where it began, with the human cost of this uncertainty. You try to cope with the loss and push forward, and then there's another death and then another death, said Mitchell Gutierrez, whose brother Martin died in 2018. It just rips off the Band-Aid. It just keeps coming back. All of us who've gone through this deserve some form of justice. The fear of a monster in the dark is a primal one. But perhaps the more chilling and urgent reality is that there is no single monster to catch. The devil is in the details, the dark trail, the unattended drink, the understaffed precinct, the unanswered questions. And until those systemic demons are confronted, the dark waters of Lady Bird Lake will continue to keep their secrets.